If I promised you one thing and then I just did something else, you'd be hacked off with me. If I sold you something that was in fact something else, you'd want a refund. And if you'd married me, only to discover I'd been telling serious lies, you'd likely want a divorce. And all rightly so. So how then is it possible that our politicians are able to make exaggerated claims in order to secure our votes and are seemingly not held to account? Do you remember these promises?
We made a promise before the election that we would vote against any rise in fees under any circumstances. But that was a mistake.
Net migration to this country will be in the order of tens of thousands each year, not the hundreds of thousands every year that we've seen over the last decade.
Every week we send actually more than £350 million to Brussels.
We send it. So hang on, so it comes out of a bank account in Britain and goes to Brussels.
Not only are politicians not held to account, but these claims are repeated over and over again in the media, and they have serious consequences. I'm fed up of it. Until 1999, parts of political advertising was governed by the Advertising Standards Authority, and then it stopped. And what a surprise, politicians didn't act on the recommendation to replace it. I want to see an independent body or code immediately set up to govern what politicians can promise across all mediums. I want it to be agile, I want it to be quick to act, and I want it to have real consequences.
I mean, the problem with politics is that we require them to have solutions to everything. And there aren't solutions to everything. And any politician who stands up and says, I don't know the answer to that, I mean, look, you can see him laughing. He would kill him on his radio show if he said, I don't know the answer to that.
Don't ask me, Gov.
Yeah, well, how do you think I know? Therefore, we have created a political system in which you have to have answers to everything without having the first clue about how to do it.
But that's different to saying something that's
Nick
not.
Clegg, in that clip, when he was talking about tuition fees, Nick Clegg didn't intend to introduce tuition fees. He ended up in a coalition government with the Tories.
He did.
Who wanted to push through tuition fees, and he didn't fight against it. Enough will be my argument. But these things are inevitable in politics.
But it's not inevitable to say, I'm going to reduce immigration, net migration to tens of thousands when you can't.
It's perfectly valid to say, I want to introduce.
Yeah, that's my intention.
It's my intention.
That wasn't a lie, that was clumsy.
Yeah.
That was his ambition. In fact, he should have thought, particularly in the position that he then enjoyed, he should have realised, hang on, I can't do that because of the current agreement that we have with the European Union.
Yeah.
So it is my... I think to accuse him, that's not a lie.
So see,
that's
if you
just
like my third
clumsiness.
example more, the 350 million.
That
is
lie.
something that is not accurate. It's not accurate. So it gets told, and then it gets reproduced and reproduced and reproduced by all the media, and people believe that and vote off the back of that, and there is no consequences. There are no consequences to that. And I feel that is fundamentally wrong. And as I was saying before, the Advertising Standards Authority, they did used to govern some political advertising. It stopped because the major parties couldn't agree what should be covered and what shouldn't be covered.
I'm sure politicians lied in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s.
But that's not acceptable, though.
And even the 1900s when he was around.
I think
this is very interesting.
It is.
What Michelle's brought up, because
it's a great point.
I think there was that huge sense after the referendum that a lot of the things said on both sides turned out. Like, there was Project Fear. And then there was all the things like the 350...
Well, I'm not, but I'm just saying...
I think it would be a good idea to have an IPSO or an Ofcom equivalent.
It's not only a good idea, it's essential. You have to govern these promises.
I think these things have to pass the smell test before they are unleashed on the public and then influence the direction of history.
But then we as the media have got to... The media has got to begin to accept that politicians don't have solutions to all problems. And unfortunately, we don't. And therefore... I mean, you go back to the Blair days when people used to literally make up the initiative on the way to the studio because they had to have an answer to something. And we get actually the politicians that we and the public deserve, right? We created this, that they have got us. The only person I ever remember in my lifetime standing up was Margaret Thatcher when she first got elected and said, well, we can't do everything. It's not possible. And at long enough, she thought, no, I wasn't a Thatcherite in any way, but at least she said it. Yeah. Now, after a couple of years, it disappeared and she didn't say it again.
So do you disagree with me? Are you telling me you don't agree with me, that you think there needs to be this code? That...
I think on published stuff.
Well, party election broadcast, should they be run
published
past
stuff, I think, is an
something?
argument. But in the end, what politicians talk about is aspiration. And they said, the society we want...
That's quite true, actually. The manifesto, the Tory manifesto, which said we will have a referendum, we had a referendum, and now we are committed to enacting the manifesto. So actually, they do have direct consequences in government.
Well, yes, but of course the referendum was created to
appease the
right wing of the or certain wing of the Conservative wing.
But the reason we had it was in the manifesto, which often people say, oh, not worth the paper they're written on.
But events change. As you were saying, and I think you have to be aware of this, Michelle, and Greg's touched on this. We could be elected now if we formed a government, and 5 years halfway through, things change, and we have to change our tax. Suddenly we find there's no money. Suddenly we find whatever it might be.
I am very right.
Michelle, I think I agree with you. What Michelle is saying is, if there is some sort of body, then obviously politicians will start being a little bit more honest and maybe a bit more transparent, which then will influence the press.
Maybe that will be your next
be.
gig, off-poll.
Yeah.
Where you regulate.
Would you like to regulate politicians? Because think of a worse job.
Yeah. Right, let me be
Make the FA look attractive.
The worst job, you're doing it right now, mate.
Right, I understand that things change, and I understand massively that you need to be agile and be responding to what's going on around you, and you cannot just be stubborn and go, this is what I said, so it's what I'm going to do. You have to be fluid and agile.
Flexible, yeah.
But that is very, very different to knowingly standing up and, in order to canvass a vote, telling something that is not true or not accurate or misleading.
A barefaced lie, like the 350 million.
Yeah, and in 1999, when the ASA stopped governing this,
they
made a recommendation.
It was a net. It was a gross figure. There was a net figure as well.
But the ASA made a recommendation that there had to be this independent body set up to do it. In 2003, the Electoral Commission again did a consultation and said there needs to be a body. That was recommended to government. It wasn't acted on. Why?
Look,
I agree.
June will ring Theresa after we go off air. She will sort it out. It will be done.
In the last week of the referendum campaign, the BBC actually did a fact check for and actually it was rather good. They actually went through both sides and said, "This is what you said," and that isn't
when
what
was this?
When
did this
in
happen?
the last week of the referendum. I think the BBC suddenly panicked and realised that their coverage had been so dull.
Do you know, June, you're the sort of woman that if I was married to you and I got back late from the pub one night with some mates in November 2012, you would never, ever, ever let it go, would you? It is. You just won't let this go.
So what did remember 2012?
Not.
What did your last two wives complain about?
I never got back from the pub. That's what we have to do.
Can I just be absolutely clear? Because I'm surrounded by people in the media, and you're all telling me that you do not think that there should be with the exception of June, you three are telling me you do not agree that there should be governed.
Too
that these
utopian.
people.
It's too utopian. I think you're taking a too simple view.
No.
I mean, I appreciate and I understand what's driving it, but in practical terms, I've got to say no. I don't think it can work.
I find that astonishing.
Well, you see, are you talking about what is published, or are you talking about what they're saying in an interview? And they're two very different things. If you're talking about what's published, there's an argument for that. I don't think there's an argument for anything in an interview or in the knock-around of politics.
I'm saying if you make a claim and you know it's not true, so I'll stick with the 350 just to keep it simple. If you make a claim that you know it is not true, you must be held to account for that. But at the time, not like 6 months later, at the time, you must be held to account. The media must be held to account if they broadcast and repeat.
Can I say one thing?
Briefly.
It's like you when you're not back from the pub. You'll be held to account 6 months later.
I will be with you. Here's